And action. And welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 160. It is 4th of April. We are on the second quarter of the year, which is actually pretty cool. So this time is moving fast for sure. So which is great. Spring is coming on the northern hemisphere. I'm just waiting for the
already fall. Sorry.
Okay.
It's gonna rain. It's gonna rain the whole week. After 2 or 3 weeks of sun, now it's gonna rain the whole week. Like we are already going back to the fall. Like
so, I need to show this because I'm so happy about this. So cool, so cool. Now that we're recording, super important PnP Weekly. So cool.
For people listening to us without video, Vesa is showing a shoe with kind of screws on the sole of it. Like, I think it's meant to attach wheels to it, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay. So it's a roller blade shoe.
Inline,
is that what it is?
Inline roller, yes.
Inline skate. Okay.
Whatever it's actually so roller blade is also a company which actually came off with roller blading, but then as there are other companies nowadays, then people talk about inline skating rather than...
it's inline skates are all in one row, whereas roller skates are in pairs. I think that was the differentiator.
I don't know. Again, it's...
That's how I go about it, but...
Yes.
Anyways,
so
the important things of the week.
We talk about inline skating and the weather and...
seasons of the year across the globe.
Exactly.
Anything else?
Yeah. Now,
the whole week.
I'll talk about the latest on Microsoft 365. We typically have a visitor like this week as well. Arjun Menon joined us on the to have a discussion on his path or journey in the community. He's based in Bangalore, India, and actually started contributing 2018, so 4 years ago or something like that, got more closely involved. And through the Sharing is Caring initiatives, thank you, David and Hugo, leading those things, got more familiar with the GitHub, got more accepted on the idea that, hey, I can actually contribute, and everybody can, of course, everybody is welcome to contribute, and then started contributing. Got to be an MVP, got to be a coordinator, what is it? It's the, what term do you use? Maintainer in the CLI nowadays. So it's a really good discussion and on the why the community actually matters and why people would be doing that, even though they have their day job and they might be busy otherwise. So really cool. But let's actually jump in there right away. So, and then we'll go back on after that on the articles and we'll talk about the latest on the week. Sounds good?
Aye.
Let's go to the interview. Thank you, Waldek. So welcome, Arjun Menon from India to the PnP Weekly episode 160. So good to have you in here. Before we go to your details on your side, I just want to say congratulations on achieving the MVP status because you've been really active for years in the open source and community side of the house. But let's start from there. Who are you? What are you doing? And what's your feelings around the MVP award?
Hello, everyone. I am Arjun Menon. I am a technical architect working for Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, based out of Bangalore, India. That's what I do for my living. And outside that, I think Vesa just covered that I am recently added MVP. I think I became official on March 1st. That's one news. And another big news, which I feel to my heart, is that I've been recently added into the elite PnP team member, and that's another huge news according to you. So that's me, and I am basically part of a team who develops apps for the team, increases the adoption or showing the art of possible to the client, what all things you can do in teams. That's what I do in my daily work, and that's all about me. We can get started from there.
How did you get to be a technical architect at Tata Consultancy Services? Now I've learned the right name of saying the company as well. So
good, congrats. Names are difficult, Vesa. Names are difficult. So I recently, I would say it's not recent. It's been an year. I completed a year at TCS last March. So it's been an year in TCS. Before that, I was in a different organization. And how did I come to know is that because I always wanted to be part of a team who does something in Teams area, which I've never experienced before TCS. So that is the reason which I joined TCS in first place. And I'm talking about the Teams part. Before Teams, I was primarily focusing on the SharePoint side of the house, SPFX and everything, and now currently into the Teams. Yeah. In terms of experience, I started as a ASP.NET developer back in the old days, and I think 1.5 years I was working in the ASP.NET development, developing web applications for the various organizations. Then the whole beautiful word SharePoint came into the picture, and back in the days it was 2007, and we all know how good they were, how beautiful they were, how elite they were.
Oh yeah.
So that's what it started. And I still remember the first project which I got. It was in 2007, and I still see all the user interface which was built in user controls. I think ASESWin, and even the GUI you have to build in the C# code. I still remember, and I was totally confused with that. Luckily, that was my last project in 2007. Then I got switched into 2010, 2013, and finally into the online. So that has been a great journey right from the 2007 and to do the whole M365 world so far. So that was great, wonderful it was.
You have kind of this classical, let's say, historical storyline of going to the Teams and Microsoft 365 more broadly. So coming from the SharePoint background, because there's a lot of us who have been doing decades of work in a SharePoint, and then of course the explosion of the offers and opportunities in M365 happened after that, which is of course awesome. And then getting to the Teams is completely understandable as well. There's a high demand on that. Now, what does that actually mean in practice? So you do stuff in Teams. Do you work with the local customers? Do you work globally? What kind of things are those? Just to drill a bit on that. So what does it mean that you're building stuff for Teams?
Yeah, so a couple of things which involves in my day-to-day activities. We do have global customers, so I don't see much of the local customers. At least the customers which we deal primarily are the global customers. So it expands into multiple things. So there are one area what we do is that we find to identify some of the line of business actions, specifically for the frontline workers, and see how we can bring Teams into their ecosystem. That is one area which we are focusing on. Try to find their pain areas and how Teams can potentially benefit them. That's one area which I focusing on. Along with that, there are some customers who come to us asking what all we can do in Teams, what are the art of possible in Teams, how we can bring their line of business into the Teams ecosystem altogether. So these are the kind of work which we build it for the organizations across. And that's one aspect. And another aspect is that there are also certain set of teams who wants to be part of the Teams development. So it is our team who helps them where you can start, how you can build components of that. That's another aspect. So these are the three areas which we focus on the Teams part. Yeah.
That's really cool. Now let's then drill a bit about your. Where do we start first? Open source community. Let's talk about your open source and community, and I'm not going to explain what you do, but you've been active on the community side of the house. So what is the thing what you've been working in the past within the past years, not weeks, well, weeks as well, but past years.
Many weeks make up a year.
Yeah.
True.
It's 54 weeks precisely. So yeah, you're good then. So yeah. So I think I started my journey, I think back in 2019 or 2020. In fact, my knowledge about the PnP started a bit before that, because Rabi is a close friend of mine. So I used to see her names across the Twitters and all the tech community. And I felt one day, maybe I also need to be famous one day. So what's the best
way? When I grow up, I want to be that.
I want to be that. So that's what it started actually. So I asked her, what does she do? I mean, she said she takes part in the CLI for Microsoft 365, and she contributes everything over there. And I went through that. I think that was back in 2019. And then I went through that. In fact, I think that was the first time I forked that CLI project into my local. So then after that, after 3-4 months, I did not do anything on that. No blame to no one else. It's only to me, because I was a bit busy in the work and I just went through it. Then I started this whole becoming famous came into my mind again. I should be famous again. And I started contributing to the CLI for Microsoft 365. So what I started is with a sample script. It is as simple as that, because that's the right way to do that. Because jumping directly into the code base is going to be a risky business for a person like me, because it will be too much overwhelming and you need to understand how it works. So I started with a PnP script samples, and I developed a script. I did not create the script myself. It was done by someone else. And what I did is that I converted that into CLI and created the first PR. And what happened is that the PR got approved, and there were people, all the famous people who started sharing that, okay, welcome to this community. And that feeling, I still don't forget it. That's the best feeling which I had. I mean, every people whom I look forward to, who I considered as off, and they started sharing, and that was the best feeling. Then I understood, okay, this is a nice journey. This is going to make me famous, and more than that, it's going to make me a better person what I am. And that was the beginning of the journey. From then, I started contributing to the commands, and I created, I gave there was an enhancement command which was there, and I started contributing to that, and it went on and on and on. And the best part is that when you give a command and when you submit a PR, you'll get something called review commands, right? I still remember my first command. I think I had around 50 to 20 review commands. And when I saw that, my goodness, I understood what I'm doing wrong.
That's
and
awesome.
What to do better. That is awesome. So, and I think it was Waldek, it was you who reviewed the initial thing. And I understood, okay, there are a lot of learnings which you need to make. And along with you contributing to the community, you are learning yourself. I would say you're learning yourself is much more than the other part, because though you are spending your time for the community, you are learning, and that is an area which most of the people, it's an underrated comment, I would say, because you're learning a lot of things from the community. That's brilliant, and that is my journey, I would say.
Yeah. Now, that's actually a really good description, and also I want to be a famous aspiration, but of course there's multiple, let's say, motives which we do, and then realizing that it actually helps you to grow as a technical person and grow as a person and a human being as well. How do you feel that you already gave positive feedback on Waldek related on the engagement, but how do you feel on the, let's say, there's always this, oh my god, am I good enough? Can I actually do the pull request? Oh, but I don't know, and you go over that and then you do the initial pull request and the submission. Is the community welcoming? How is it helpful? Everything worked okay on that side?
Totally. So I think I also went through the same thought which you said right now, whether am I good enough to initiate a PR for the people who have been doing it? And that happens only for a very first time. I'll tell you the reason why. The moment you do that, even though you may consider yourself not good enough and you initiate a PR, but the welcome which you get from all the community, not even from the CLI, across the community is just brilliant. Because even though you are asking a trivial question, it could be stupid. I won't call it as a stupid question, a silly question, but they take their time and respond it to you. And that is the brilliance of the community. And only, as I said, only for the first time you would feel, okay, you may not be good enough, whether you're doing it right or not. Then you understood, okay, even though you consider themselves as superheroes, they are also humans. Okay, they understand your feelings, that they understand your emotions, and they spend their time to make yourself a better person and make the product as a better person. And that is wonderful. And no wonder why PnP community is the best community in the world. I mean, I can probably say that.
So the one thing that I'm interested in, because you went actually from your first fork and a PR to actually being on the other side. Now it's you, because you maintain a project, right? Like you maintain CLI for M365. So now it's you welcoming others, answering questions that they have, reviewing their work. How do you feel about that journey you've had so far, from your first fork and not doing anything to being on the other side and actually you being the guide?
Oh, you're the famous person, by the way, and
exactly.
You're the person who's actually, everybody's like, oh my god, he's giving me now input and review.
Yeah, exactly.
Comments.
When I grow up, I want to be that. You.
And Arjun, before you mention that, I have to say that feeling is exactly where all of us came from, because trust me, every single one person in this call had the same, am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? And as I push in the first pull requesting, well, or maybe there wasn't even pull request at the time.
A secret, it never stops.
And with the secret in there, and then you do mistakes and all of that, but then you learn because we're human beings. So, yes.
That is correct. Yeah, answering the Waldek's question, yes, I did have an overwhelming feeling, because before all I needed to do was just to initiate the pull request, because I'll get a review comments, and maybe my responsibility is far less compared to what I am right now, the maintainer part. But when it came to maintainer, I felt a bit responsible because with power comes responsibility. So you need to make sure that what you're following is what you are supposed to do. So what the thing which I did personally is that I was just following what other maintainers are doing, who has been there as a maintainer for quite some time, and what they have been doing, what is their do, be it Waldek, be it Gary or Rabia, or all these maintainers whom CLI already has, and I started following that, and then I took up some of the review comments, whether am I good enough, whether I'm giving the comments which I'm supposed to do, because I'm always sure that even if I give something wrong, there will be people behind my back who will correct me, which is how the community works. So it is not that no one is pointing fingers at you. It is a collective effort. So even if initially I felt a bit overwhelming, Waldek, being a maintainer, but then I felt okay. There is a big team who is behind me, and even if I do something wrong, which is fine, it is okay. The team will take care of you. That is why that feeling made me more comfortable within the community, and yeah, that's how it is.
And if there is someone new who aspires to be where you are now, what one piece of advice would you give them?
Three. It's
or
fine.
3 pieces. Like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say one because the one will always be 2. Because if we start with 3, it's going to be 5. You know.
Oh, Waldek is realistic. Okay, so once I got this MVP award, at least it became when I became famous. I'll put it this way: people started asking me, "How do you become an MVP? How do you become an MVP?" So what I used to tell them is that you cannot become an MVP. You need to be an MVP, because MVP is not a milestone. It is not a checkpoint where you reach, because it has to be part of your journey. That's what I personally felt it, because and that's why I feel the MVP program is not as transparent as it has to be, because it does not have the checkpoint. You need to do this. You need to do this. No, you do not get that. So you have to start. You should not aim for the MVP. You need to start contributing to the community, and eventually you will become MVP. That's how ideally the journey has to be. And any MVP, what I feel is that MVP who has become MVP only once, he or she will continue through his journey. I'm sure that's how the success rate is. And no wonder that is the reason why you want to be. So I would say that is one advice which you need to do. And then other advice, it'll be a cliche, it'll be a bit philosophical. You need to love what you do, because otherwise, if you're aiming for becoming an MVP, once you get an MVP, you'll get bored. Then there is nothing you can do. So you need to continue doing what you love. And that's why. And adding to that, one reason why I joined community is because once your day job becomes boring, when you start becoming very boring things, community is an area where you get to do a lot of things, and you'll not be judged, you'll not be pointed fingers at, and you can do whatever you love to do. And you can do all this. So I gave you 3 advice, by the way. I'm not going to
go. There you go. I knew it, right? Because if you start with 3, it's going to be always more. So let's start with 1. There will be but there's this one more thing I want to share. Yeah.
But that's something what we've been talking about with Waldek already many years, where the main value of, well, not main value, one of the values, because all the humans, it's highly subjective, but for some of us, one of the key values in the community for sure is that when the day job, like you said, gets boring, you still have an area where you can, like, hey, I can investigate, I can do new stuff, I can engage, and you find similar-minded peers, so similar-minded people to actually share your learnings, and through those connections, you then build networks of people. Not that you intentionally want to network in people, but you kind of naturally grow to know people and then have connections throughout the world. But that takes time, of course, but it's highly, let's say, it's quite rewarding.
Yeah.
Because then you get to know people and different perspectives and different,
exactly,
which increases diversity, which increases understanding of the world enormously, because we work.
Yeah. And you don't. I'm sorry. Unless if I'm part of an community, I wouldn't have any chance to work from the people across the globe.
Yes.
Well, like you are from Netherlands or Poland, and Vesa, you are from Finland. And there is no way, if you're not part of a community, you'll not be able to work or get yourself connected across to them. And that is wonderful. You will get to know what is their thoughts, how different are they from your thoughts, and how are their ideas getting formulated, and how do they execute it. There are a lot of learnings everywhere.
Yep.
So that's a beauty. That's a beauty.
Yep.
It is, right? Because like that is exactly that. And that's also so depends on the company type you work with, right? If like I used to work with companies that are 20 odd folks, right? Like at some point you start, if that is the only group with which you work, you start at some point echoing what's being said in that small group. Whereas if you go out there, you get exposed to many people with many backgrounds, ideas, journeys that they went through, perspective, customers, geographies, and so forth and so on. And all of that will have impact on the way you see things, the way you think about things, right? So it will help you grow beyond anything that you can grow internally. And of course, if you work for a big company globally and you're active in communities internally, you kind of have the same thing, but it's still, you still only get to see one culture, one type of company, one type of thinking. And there's so much more out there, and especially nowadays with internet available to us, it's exciting, right? To be able to connect with others, with people with whom, as you said, with whom you don't get to work otherwise every day, and actually be able to work with them and learn from them, right?
Totally. That you won't get it outside. Definitely, you won't get it outside. I mean, though we are meeting only virtually right now, I'm sure there will be a day where we all meet, will physically at least.
Yeah, we'll see. Crossing fingers that.
Well, probably right the first time we will meet, we will not work, right? Because they will be like, "Oh my God, we meet in person."
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And we'll have the biggest imposter syndrome just to talk with others. So that happens.
Yeah.
Now, related actually on the meeting in person, we just last week on the end of the March there was an MVP summit. You as a new MVP person starting from 1st of March. Great timing, by the way. You get to be in the MVP summit because if you were awarded on 1st of April, then first of all you wouldn't know if it's true or not, and second of all, because of April Fools. But there was basically, for those who don't know, there's a NDA meaning that stuff we cover topics from Microsoft which are under they're still secret, so they're not allowed to be shared externally. But with MVPs, as part of the MVP, let's say, agreement and contract, MVPs do get access on. Well, they need to first of all sign the NDA. I'm not going to tell about these things, and then second of all, they get access on what's coming. You said that you had a chance on participating at least 2 days of MVP Summit before we started recording. How was the experience?
It was wonderful. I would say it was. One thing is that it was too much information was there, so I need to take time to digest all those overwhelming information. And the best part is that there was, especially with respect to the teams and other areas, there were some uncertainties whether Microsoft is going to invest in this area, ABC areas. And now we get to know whether they'll do it or not, not revealing the LDA part areas, but whether they will do it or not. So that's just something wonderful. That will be very, very invaluable for the MVPs, especially when they want to solution their part for their customers, not revealing anything. What is the direction it is going to be? So I would say there is a lot of information around. Only thing we need to spend one more week to go through all the videos and see what is happening. That is one thing. But the best part is that I love the chat part, because only if you're part of the meeting you'll be able to understand what others are asking, and there you'll get a lot of your questions answered. So that is another best part. So yeah, it is different than the actual meeting, but I don't blame it. I'm not complaining it. It is.
Yeah. And referencing back on the in-person thing, that of course before the pandemic, the MVP Summit happened actually in person in Redmond, because it's Microsoft telling for MVPs what's happening. So, and everybody typically are in Redmond, except this one guy in Netherlands and this one person in Finland. But typically they fly over then to talk about things. Well, there's quite a few Microsoft people living outside of Redmond as well. Anyway, so. That was Miles.
Yeah, I'm missing something clearly. I don't know.
Now, last week the MVP Summit, it was pretty. I think it was 570 whatever sessions. So it's quite overwhelming to have that amount of sessions, and then you need to select those which we want to be in person, and with time zone differences and everything else, it does get complicated. But the in-person experiences in MVP Summit, those are really, 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 really cool, because typically, again, you get to fly to Redmond, you'll see the campus, which is huge, and then people realizing that, oh my God, this is massive.
It is basically a town. Like the campus is basically a Microsoft town. Like you could just might as well have a board next to the road. Like you're entering Microsoft now.
Yeah. And then again, drive tens of minutes and you're still inside of the town. So because of the traffic, of course. Now, but yeah, I hopefully next year we'll see MVP Summit will be then in person. But then how's your actually? So Arjun, think about that one. The fact that in person versus remote versus and your experiences on Microsoft Teams. How do you feel about this? How would I put it? Is the remote thing, is it good enough already in Teams? Should we do how is the future looking from your perspective related on hybrid meetings and asynchronous way of working, which is Waldek's favorite topic? Is this something where we are truly investing now, or should we be doing in-person things, or should we do hybrids or anything? Any thoughts on that? More on your work side of the house.
Yeah, I would say it's a two-sided prong, because in one side, if it is a virtual event, it will give you the avenue for the people who may not be able to travel physically to that, be it in terms of, let's say, flights and every other price. For them, definitely it is going to be a boon. But personally, I would love to be part of the actual meetings, because you get to meet people, you get to understand right from that, and more than that, you'll be able to communicate with the peers. Because you may not be a presenter, you'll just be an attendee, but you will be able to have a discussion, strike a conversation with others, and understand what are they doing, how are they doing differently than what you're doing. So these kind of perspectives you will get. But on the other side, there will be people who may not be skeptical in asking questions, like me, because I'm a bit skeptical when I ask questions. For me, Teams give me an avenue to ask, put it as a chat, which is nice, which is great for many people. So I would say it's a two-sided process. If you ask me personally, I would prefer the actual event. That's my personal opinion, but it has its own plus and minus.
Yeah.
The Teams experience and everything is good, but when the moment of that personal element is missing in the actual one. But I'm completely at it.
It's different, and that's actually a really interesting point as well. And jumping a bit of something what you said, but the fact that you are in remotely and you are in Teams, there's a lower barrier to ask questions because you can use the chat, which is actually absolutely true. Because in the room where there's 60 or 80 people in a room, we. At least personally, it's always like, well, am I now
it's
worthy?
Intimidating.
Am I worthy?
It's intimidating.
One of my questions is stupid. How could I
recall when I was first time at the summit, it's exactly that. Like you're in a room with all the people to whom you looked up to for years. You're in the room with them, kind of equal, and you are supposed to like raise your hand, stand up, say who you are, and ask your stuff. Like hell no, absolutely not. Like that no.
On this episode, right. See, I'm late show.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, like, having the ability, and sure, and that's exactly what you see also, and also the fact, like, is what you're about to ask, is that relevant to everybody else? And this is exactly what you see that at the summit, but also at all other events. People will come up after the event to whoever spoke in smaller groups, one-on-one, one on few, but not with everybody in the audience and doing like raising hands in the middle of somebody. No. Like that's not, at least for me, that was never a thing. Like nah, which is a shame, right? Because like people who speak, they want feedback. Like we used to come there, jump on a plane, fly 8, 9, 10, 11 hours, whatever hours to give feedback. And then it's like, kind of shy,
Too difficult. It's too difficult. My arms are not lifting.
Yeah, it's like, so tired. So tired after the flight.
So tired.
Actually, just reminded me on just the point in the head, but point in the head, whatever that means. Wow. Anyway, Monday morning, English is hard. Now, thought in the head. Thank you. But it's actually great to see this all of this tooling like Microsoft Teams and the GitHub and all of this thing is actually also equalizing the community work, because again, it's not just the fact that your country versus Redmond but it's also the regional events. So every now and then people cannot actually join on the in-person events. We can do stuff remotely. We can work in GitHub. There's a lot of contributors which we haven't actually met face to face, but we engage with them in a GitHub, in Twitter, in a social media, in a LinkedIn, and all of that. So, and still somehow magically community is able to kind of align its way through a joint direction, which is kind of cool. So it doesn't require that you are in person, and it then provides equal opportunities. Anybody who has a GitHub account, which is free, can actually build and can grow to be an MVP, which is actually really cool. So
totally. I was always wondering, I mean, how before this whole online thing, let's say when it's in 2010, 2012, how people used to get MVP, because it is very difficult.
No. It was more presentations, conferences. Books. Yes.
It's harder. So now it is, I would say it is easier to get yourself connected, and compared to the old days, right now it is very difficult to be very easy to be part of the community, unlike let's say 10 years back. So yes, it is wonderful.
Technology is equalizing the opportunities, which is absolutely great, like it should be. It's just enabling everybody across the world to have the equal opportunities of contributing and being active.
Correct. That's correct.
But still, in-person meetings are still cool. But
and the
I guess
snacks too. Should not mean that.
Yeah, exactly. But then at the same time, at least personally, I have a massive imposter syndrome, and meeting people always face to face and being shy, it always makes me feel really, really tired after those days. So having this kind of a nice distance between the people. Sorry, you're somewhere in here. I don't really need to be super engaged. It's easier to handle the energy levels for sure. The in-person meeting and discussions, and it's much more demanding. So
partial anonymity. Yeah, it is nice.
Yes. Exactly. And then you can change your background if you want, and you can do all of that. Nobody knows where you're calling from, but still, it's technology provides us the equal opportunities of being in those meetings, regardless of the background. So.
And I think, I think if there's one thing that we learned from the last 2 years is that we still didn't really crack the mystery in a way, or the recipe for engaging with others virtually. And I don't think that is technology's fault. Like, I don't think that there's like, you know what, like we need this feature in Teams or somewhere else, and that will make it. I think it's the whole thing. Like, yes, like as you said, like being able to attend event from your own house, like solves many issues like travel, politics, finance, many things. Like it makes the content accessible to everybody. It invites broader audience, more diverse and inclusive. But this one thing that I think we still miss is the ability to connect, to have the hallway discussions over a beverage around things, the connection part. And I think like if we manage to crack this one missing ingredient, I think virtual would be here to stay, because it's better for so many reasons. Like it's better for finance, the planet, like everything. Like on every single thing you get the benefits, as long as we have this one less thing. Like how can we connect with others virtually the same way we used to do in person?
True. Correct.
Now, from a timing perspective, I guess we need to close up in a relatively soon. But Arjun, I'm going to put you in the spot and ask still, what would be your 3 tips for anybody? We talked about some of this already, but what would be the 3 tips for anybody who's looking into growing and starting to contributing in the community? How would you know which community, where? And any tips on approaching this objective?
I would say I think we have been showing it to everyone. I think the M365 PnP, even when someone asks me how do you start it, one link which I used to tell them is that go to aka.ms/M365 PnP, because you will get that is the single entry point for everything. Okay, that is one area where you get to know what is PnP, what is M365 community, and everything. From then you connect with anyone. See, even if you are a person who you don't know anyone whom you are contributing it, connect with any random person and you'll get a welcoming message. And that is my experience, and I'm sure everyone would have got the same experience. So you don't need to hesitate and ask them what should you do, how should I do, and I'm sure they will be able to help you, and they will help you also. And there are also dedicated sessions, caring sessions, which has been happening around. And I think I attended that first session back in 2018, and I started right from there. And if my journey has been, if you find that my journey has been good, probably that will be for everyone. So all you need to do is that take an initiative and ask someone. They're not going to judge you. They're not going to point fingers at you, and they'll welcome you. And you'll get it.
Everybody is certainly welcome. Everybody across the planet are welcome. 100%.
Correct.
So
irrespective of where you belong, irrespective of which gender you are, that is there.
Yes. So, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Cool. I think that sums up this interview. Thank you, Arjun, for joining us. Really, really cool discussion, and congratulations on the MVP status and the PnP team status as well. So really, really cool, and great to have you actively involved, helping others then now to be part of the community. So it's a really great journey from starting contributing and then being actually now on the other side and helping others to feel appreciated like it should be. So
thanks a lot. I mean, it's been a very, very wonderful session, and thanks for welcoming me to be part of this show, because I've been an ardent listener of this show right from the day one. It used to be a routine when I go to the commute, so I cannot still fathom the fact that I am part of this session, but that is how the community is. I mean, anyone across the globe will be welcome, and it was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
And then from here, we'll jump on the weekly articles with Waldek. But thank you, Arjun. Really, really.
Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Arjun, one more time. Really, really cool discussion, and good to catch up as well. And hopefully, as we had a discussion, hopefully we'll meet at some point face to face. Year from now, maybe MVP Summit, or maybe earlier at somewhere in the world, if we will start seeing people in person conferences. I think in overall, I think people are much more, let's say, thoughtful on the fact that will they travel that much anymore after this 2.5 years in the pandemic. At least personally, it's do I want to actually go? So we have the Las Vegas conference happening this week in Las Vegas, and of course I was asked that, hey, do you want to go? And it's like, well, do I really want to go?
Well, I think it is an interesting thing, because I think there was a time way back when where going to an event equaled you traveled. So that was just a default, like you traveled to an event. The last 2 years, it was the other opposite, where, well, you couldn't go anywhere. There were like the only events were virtual. And I think that now we're kind of going to the point where things open up, at least in some parts of the world. But we're kind of in the place like, hey, like we experienced the two extremes. We traveled with all the things like, the hassles of travel, the airports and so forth and so on, had like for some visums, costs. We had also the other extreme, like we didn't go anywhere, which has the benefits too, like no traffic jams, no travel, more time with your family and so forth and so on. And now we're kind of like, And now I think we're at a point where it's becoming a deliberate choice. Yes. Do I really want to go there?
Yep.
And will the benefit outweigh, the
inconvenience of travel?
The downsides, exactly. So it is. I think, an interesting time for everybody really to see and learn, like, how will we go about it, and what will be the outcome of it?
Yep, absolutely. So and well, of course, we'll be wiser within a year when we'll see how the situation actually moves. But at least for me, it was more like, well, do I want to be in 15 hours in a plane with mask on? Do I really want to? So no, thank you. So my manager is taking care of my duties in Las Vegas, because it's a shorter flight from Seattle rather than from Helsinki. So better this way. Anyway, so let's come back on the discussion on what's happening and all of that in a second. But let's first do some articles for Microsoft and community. So let's actually jump in there. Last week was MVP Summit. So for those who do not know, we talked about it actually with Arjun as well, but it's visible that a lot of the MVPs were focusing on an MVP Summit rather than writing articles, because there wasn't actually that many published articles in the blog post. But let's start with the Microsoft side of the house. So in the Microsoft 365 blog, in the tech community, there's actually a few of these Microsoft 365 blogs. So it's a bit of a confusing thing. But in the tech community Microsoft 365 blog, there was a new article from Mamda Kumar on Microsoft Teams apps designed for Microsoft 365 coming in preview to Outlook and Office.com. So this is something which we talked about in the show in the past as well. So there's the Teams V2 SDK. So there's a new version on top of kind of evolution on the Teams SDK. From a JavaScript integration perspective, which enables the Teams application to be extended and exposed also in Outlook and in Office.com, and eventually in the Office clients as well. So, and this really talks about that the preview is now coming to Outlook and Office.com to actually start using things. So the same application is exposed in the multiple location, and then we have centralized app management tools. So rather than have a separate tools for managing Office add-ins and apps, then we have a one centralized ways of doing that. And this is an area where you will see more and more innovation and features in the future as well. Cannot go too much details at this point, but all of the applications in Microsoft 365 are looking into aligning on this model, which is great. Without, it's like, yeah, but does it mean that everything what we've done is to go? No. There's going to be transition. All of the stuff, if you've done something in SharePoint framework, it will still be SharePoint framework, and all of that stuff will still work. It's just a matter of how do we aggregate things in a more convenient way for customers and partners, which is super, super important in this larger Microsoft 365 level, because again, it's a bit of a complex platform, but this hopefully simplifies the storyline rather than having isolation. Let's embrace the commonalities. Is that the right way of saying that? I guess it is.
Yes.
That sounded smart. Yes. One thing in Monday morning, which I got right. Good. Then we had the monthly summary on the Teams. What's happening?
Exactly. So another summary of the recent investments in Teams from the Teams team around devices, features for users, for admins, and also new apps that are available for users who work with Teams every day in their work. So definitely check it out if you're interested in what's new in Microsoft Teams, what devices you can use, what are new features, and to be able to stay on top of that.
Yeah, a lot of investments in multiple areas. So a lot of cool stuff for sure. The same actually applies on the SharePoint roadmap. So SharePoint, a similar kind of a monthly summary. What did we announce and what's coming in what did we announced in March 2020, and then also teasers on what's coming.
2022.
2022. Yes. Oh, it's not 2020 anymore. Wow.
No, it's not. Well, it's 834 of March 2020. Yes.
Exactly. Good point, actually. Anyway, so a similar kind of a summary blog post raising the SharePoint features, and SharePoint is this apps and content services for Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365. So there's kind of a lot of these relation dependent services, which either take advantage of SharePoint from a storage perspective or automation perspective, and then of course SharePoint Syntax and a lot of cool other stuff and features as well. So both blog posts are really great summaries on the breadth of the Microsoft 365 in feature perspective. So really cool stuff. A lot of stuff to follow. Now, this one is interesting. Getting started on Microsoft 365 apps at Microsoft Tech Days.
Yes. So on May the 5th, 2022, meaning the coming May, Vesa and I, together with 5 of our MVPs, will talk about extending Microsoft 365 with apps that are relevant to the business, to the customers on M365 today. Right. So, and we will have the sample case of an app that allows you to manage assigned seat, right? Because like as companies get back to a workplace, they must still have the need of limited capacity and you requesting a seat and so forth and so on. So we will show you with our MVPs solution that you could build today on M365 that allows users or employees to request seating for the facilities to manage that. you keeping track of your booking and so forth and so on. So this is a really great example, something that you could use in practice today already in your work. So definitely sign up. There will be a 2-hour event, so not a massive investment of your time. And during that time, you will see the code, how things are built, what are the different things that you need to take into account. So a lot of practical knowledge that you will be able to use immediately in your work.
Yeah, that's actually the key point. This is not future driven. This is what may or may not happen at some point, but it's actually technology which is available already today. And Teams, bots, Power Platform, SharePoint Framework,
Microsoft Graph,
Graph
Connection,
Microsoft Graph,
everything.
all of that stuff.
Yes.
In a single solution. So really cool solution. So good work on that from our MVP team as well. So moving on here, we had an update from a SharePoint side of the house on the Microsoft Graph API support for new content type sync enhancements, and this is really around the fact that we can now automate the push from the content type hub, those content types to be available within a SharePoint site using then Graph APIs, so like it should be. So all of the APIs moving gradually to the Graph side of the house and automating things. So really great stuff on there. Then there was a new article on Learn from the Community.
Exactly. So a new article from a colleague of mine, Bob, German, around interview that he had with a company named, I forgot the name. It's the Decision Point, and they made an app, a bot, right, that brings this intelligence about data to teams. So instead of users having to go to some other app, leave the context of their work, instead they can directly engage with the bot and get info directly from that in the context of their work. So a really great interview by Bob with the partner around the app that they build.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Thank you, Bob. And Decision Point people related on this one as well. Great storyline for sure. Then we had a blog post from the Power Platform side of the house related on their unified Microsoft Power Platform API, and which is now in preview, and really looking into having this kind of a centralized location to get access on all of the Power Platform automations from a single location. So rather than having, again, the isolated APIs, have a centralized APIs, which is a great way of always approaching one endpoint to roll them on all. Now, it would be cool, with all the honesty, to have this also in Microsoft Graph, because again, rather than having Power Platform its own thing and then Microsoft Graph its own thing, it would be nice to get it all aggregated. But one step at a time, heading to the same unified direction. And then we wanted to actually talk about a bit about some things happening in Las Vegas. This is mind-boggling, isn't it?
Exactly. So I guess that will be tomorrow. As we record this, it's tomorrow. As you watch this, it might be today. It might have already been. There will be Microsoft 365 conference in person in Vegas in the US. And there will be, like you might have heard it in the past, right? A Microsoft 365 all-up event featuring speakers from Microsoft, community, leaders, MVPs, talking about the latest and greatest on Microsoft 365 across the board. So it's Power Platform, it's Viva, it's SharePoint, it's Teams, everything's in there.
Yep, and a lot of familiar faces and names as a speaker. So really great stuff. And looking forward on hearing how it went and all of that stuff. So I decided to skip this one personally because I still don't feel good about traveling too much.
You cannot do it all, and you cannot do it all, right?
That's fine. And my manager is there for sure as well. Now, then we had a new announcement or new version coming out on the CLI for Microsoft 365 version 5.1. And really the new thing here was about the validating of the correctness of SharePoint framework project. So that was really the coolest thing. Of course, there's other stuff happening as well, not to reduce the work on that side, but this is actually really cool, nice, let's say, joint project together with SharePoint engineering and then the open source and community side of the house to include an automation in Microsoft 365, CLI for Microsoft 365, which will help to validate the SharePoint framework project structure. So if there's dependency mistakes or there was a good comment already in social media related on, oh, we have the solution which already upgraded 5 times and then there's some mistakes, we can't figure it out, and just run the report and it will tell you how it should be looking. So really, really cool stuff. So, and thank you, Alex Terentiev from engineering side on helping on this one. Anything else you want to actually say on this, because you are more on CLI side of the house?
Yeah, so as every month we release new version of CLI with new commands and improvements, and it's exactly as you say, like it is one example. The command you mentioned is one example where it really shows the power of community and Microsoft work together on a common goal to really try to think about the challenges that we see and making the best use of features and products that we have available, and not trying really to, take everything internally, but really embrace the fact like, well, there are other tools that are being used already. Let's add to them, as opposed to build something separate that stands by itself that people need to discover and we need to document and manage and so forth and so on. So instead, let's think of it as what are the strengths of both internal teams and community, and make really the best use of these strengths towards a common goal.
Absolutely. Really, really good example of that. And it's great to see that we're getting more and more aligned and working together with community and the engineering across the Microsoft 365, which is super cool. In this case, Alex is an awesome example, because Alex used to be an MVP, part of the open source community projects. What we're doing now, he's engineer in Microsoft, but he keeps on continuing being active on this side. And all of that is then helping on bridging the gaps and discussions and all of that. So great. One Microsoft storyline, and not just with one Microsoft, but one community storyline. Let's put it this way.
Exactly, and I mean, and it's also cool because you mentioned only Alex, but there are other folks involved too across the different teams who help with envisioning and testing, validating, providing feedback. So it's like what seems as one simple thing on the outside, actually it isn't, and it's quite elaborate, right? And it's really cool to see like how can we combine our efforts and strength to really work together on it, and not really try to one person reinvent the wheel and do everything by themselves. So that's also a very cool thing that maybe we don't really talk about that much on the outside, but it's really cool example to see here how many different teams, even at Microsoft, were involved in this.
Yep, absolutely. Great. And a great command, absolutely brilliant implementation as well. Now, related on that one, if you're wondering how do you actually use it and how does it actually work, Rabia Williams helped to create a quick video related on how things are working. How do you install the things, or what is the command, where you get more details on the tooling, and then how does it actually work in the video. And this is really cool, 39 seconds long, quick teaser video, but still has all of the details inside of it. So really great work on that, Rabia. Thank you for that. Then Don Kirkham had this series related on developing SPFX solution using Docker, and then this is the third of the fourth. Yes, I'm anyway reading it so hard. Where basically he talks about the Docker and what are the benefits, how things are actually working, how do you install things, how to get started on using things, and what does it mean in practice. And the Docker is actually kind of interesting, because whenever we released SharePoint framework, that was 2017 GA, it's already been 5 years, more than 5 years. We actually did evaluate the option of pushing the Docker at the same time, and then it didn't catch. It just didn't catch. So it was something what people felt that it's too complex, too complicated to actually do. But now we're seeing a bit more traction and a bit more interest on the community and customers and partners to actually start using that. But it always requires a certain maturity level so that you're able to accept the next steps and tooling and all of that. So it's an interesting learning on this as well.
Well, yeah, and I mean, in a way, it makes sense, because when you released it, the challenge wasn't as obvious as it is now, right? Because like one of the things that we see a lot is that over time you build apps on SPFX, and over time they will use different version, meaning different dependencies, different runtimes, and so forth and so on. When you released SPFX originally, that wasn't an issue because you only had one version, right? But now 5-6 years in, there are multiple versions, and you might need to go back at some point to a project you've built last year, 2 years back, and upgrading it might not always be an option because maybe you don't have time, there is no money in the budget for it, you just need to change something. And you can spend a lot of time, fiddling with NVM, installing the right node version, and so forth and so on. Or you use Docker and you have instantly just the right environment to work on a project, right? So it's kind of this interesting balance that people start to understand the solution only when they experience a problem.
Yep, I think that's actually true as well. So good learning exercise for the community for sure. Now, then on Ganesh had a new blog post as well.
Exactly. So a great tip. Imagine that you work on a list and you want to have conditional formatting based on a column with a date. How can you check if the date and time column is blank empty, right? So this is just like a simple tip, yet invaluable when you want to have the ability to color or do something with formatting list based on a column of type date and time.
Really cool. Thank you, Ganesh, on that one. Then Peter Wenstra had a new blog post again. He's nicely blogging every single week as well. Almost open Word documents in desktop app from PowerApps. So how do we actually start the desktop app, open Word documents in the desktop app in the automated way? So really cool automation and learnings related on that one. And the Peter's blog posts are really good on, again, pointing in scenario and then telling the story on that, and because that's going to help on those who are looking into the problem in Google or in Bing, and then they can easily find, okay, so this is the description, this is the problem, this is the solution. So great work on that, Peter. So thank you on that. Then there was a good discussion with Mike and Antonio and Sarah.
Yes, what it means to be an MVP. And that is like a really interesting thing because there are many MVPs. And when you are involved with the community or you attend events, you might get to interact with them. So it's interesting to hear from people who are MVPs how they experience that, what it's about, what is their journey, what they actually do, and so forth and so on. So it's really like a peek behind the curtains in a way, to hear from MVPs what it is to be an MVP, what it means to them.
Absolutely. So good stuff on that. Thank you, Sarah and Mike and Antonio on that one. Now, then there was a new blog post from Daniel Klein and Daryl Webster on Dude, Where's My PowerApps? And this is their weekly series on episode 234. We need to step up our game. So, Waldek,
I mean, we can number our episodes based on the, seconds since epoch.
Oh, that's clever. Episode 1,000 million, whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, latest on the messaging centers show. So going through the latest announcements in the messaging center. What exactly is messaging center? If you're an administrator in Microsoft 365 tenant administrator, you will get all of the upcoming and features and announcement through the administrative messaging center. So that's where you know the stuff what is getting released and rolling out and all of that stuff. So good weekly show to follow up as well. So thank you, Daniel and Daryl on that. Then we had a blog post, video.
Blog post?
Video.
Yes, from Paulo. And it's about how can you turn off guest users via Power Automate. And TLDR, you use for that the Microsoft Graph. If you want to know exactly how it works, what calls you need to do, and so forth and so on, watch the video. It will take all of the 5 minutes and 28 seconds for you to learn that.
Yep, really good. Good. The Tech Bites is a great series as well, a weekly series, and he's going to cross 200 episodes this week. So congratulations, Paula, on that one. So let's see what will be the special 200 episode theme. I know that he has already recorded that. The question is just what will it be? So.
And it's also an interesting thing because it's series where you learn M365 one bite at a time.
Yes.
The same way you would eat elephant.
True. One bite at a time. And then Shane Young had a new blog post. Wow, video. new video on Power Apps in responsive design. And so basically, how can you do that? And what are the learnings and how do you start learning on how they're doing things? And responsiveness is quite important in Power Apps as well, because the same Power App could be accessed to the desktop or to the different devices. So it's quite important to figure out those practices and learnings. So really, really great video, a 30-minute video, so long video for learning the techniques in here. Thank you, Shane, on that one. Now, that's it for now. So what's happening this week, Waldek?
Let me think. So we have an awesome amount of PRs open in CLI for M365. So we're going to do more releases, more reviews. Other than that, we actually released an early preview for the preview of concept about which we talked about already for many weeks, about how could we improve the developer experience for Angular devs who want to build Teams tabs with SSO. So now we have a POC. We haven't really done much noise about it yet because it's early version. So we want to first check in a small group. Does it work? Is there anything that we missed? So we have a few people looked at it already. If you work with Angular and you build for Teams, we would love to hear from you and then have you look at it, give it a try, and tell us what you think. Would that be a meaningful addition? Would that be something that you would like to see more ironed out, maintained, extended, and so forth and so on? Or do you say, well, not really? Right. So if you work with Angular and you build for Teams, let me know, let us know, because we have something to show you. We think that there would be a meaningful addition to your toolchain, but we'd love to hear from you if that's indeed the case. Other than that, let me think. So as you said, last week there was the summit, and I like many of the sessions. So it would start 4 p.m. for me, and it would last until the midnight. So I'm catching up the day after with the recordings, and it's really cool to see how much interesting stuff there is, and that like include that in thinking and all the work. So unfortunately, we cannot share more about it in the open yet, but the respective teams who talked about their work will be talking more about their work as it evolves. So definitely stay tuned for the updates. And I guess on our side, that is it.
So the build is in May. So a lot of this stuff is
exactly. So it's coming really soon. So you can definitely expect some new material there. Anything on your end, Vesa?
I'm also getting up after the MVP Summit week, and that's always takes quite a lot of time to coordinate and do things. But we're going to release a new version of SharePoint Framework 1.15. New preview version is coming out on hopefully today, if you're watching this on Tuesday when the podcast or video goes live, so 5th of April, or it might be actually Wednesday or Thursday, but we'll see. But the basic idea on that one will be then that we will introduce or provide the first version of the list extensibility on that. So,
and with that, you mean the ability to have a custom form?
Custom forms for viewing an item, editing an item, and creating an item. So,
wow, that's been a long time for a long time. Yes.
So there's a bit of one of the bit of a bummer, which we need to have feedback in the future, is that you cannot override the full list experience still. So basically the listing of all items, that's not available because again, the thinking there is that you would use the list formatting and a few other options to customize that. But you can modify the create new view item and edit item experiences.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way, you could also say, well, if you need to override the whole list, why not build a full page app?
True.
And in there, you own the full experience, and you can even have the new experience. So you can have this multi-page app with new, edit, and view.
Yep.
Right. So like it's not like people are blocked because of it.
Yeah. But again, so there's always the what about this scenario? What about this scenario?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And this is going to be a journey one step at a time. We'll introduce again additional scenarios and experiences and all of that. So based on the feedback, but that's one step at a time.
Really cool.
Cool. But I guess that's it for this week. Thank you, Waldek. Thank you, Arjun, one more time for joining us on the discussion.
Thank you,
really, really cool discussion. Thank you, Waldek, on that one. And we'll be back with the next PnP Weekly in a week. So cheers, everybody. Later.
Bye.